Today's commemoration of democracy brings to mind the victory of late philanthropist Moshood Abiola in the presidential election that was held on June 12th of 1993, 31 years ago. The occasion also echoes Chief Abiola's struggle to reclaim his mandate, as well as his eventual death while the custody of the military leaders at the time. Those watershed moments are considered by many to be the true foundations of the current democratic dispensation. Well, we are now being joined by Dr. Sam Amadi, who is the director of the Abuja School of Social and Political Thought, for a reflection on how Nigeria has fared, her current challenges, in addition to existential threats to her nationhood. Good to have you, Dr. Amadi, and happy Democracy Day to you.
Thank you very much. Happy Democracy Day. Good afternoon.
So, as it is June 12th, what are your reflections on democracy in Nigeria's history of 25 years of unbroken democratic rule?
Well, I think I have to start with, I was somewhat an active participant in law school in 1993, 92, 93, when we were, with Campaign for Democracy, UAD and others, of course, and the National Conscience Party of Chief Gani Fawemi, which I was co-founder with Professor Kiyamo. We were on the streets then, Chimobane, all of us, Fabian Okoye and the rest of us, Uche Gocha, Pamuda Muni, when we were leafleteering and moving around, trying to kind of provide a resistance to the military over the annulment of the June 12th. So first, a reflection of the civic energy, the kind of thing that in the U.S. history, with the civil rights fight, with the anti-war movements, you saw that sense of civic energy, pro-democracy mobilization, and the rising of the people against military rule, and clamoring for democracy. And again, let's not forget the coalition at the heart of it. The Labour Student Union that became CSO then, led by Odisabakoba them, the Miloma March, Femi Falana, Gani Fawemi, who provided great intellectual and legal leadership. But of course, tied with Labour Union, Okokori and others, who had the Pegasus and the UPeng, tied to radical Marxist and pro-socialist movement. So that coalition of students, workers, professionals, the concerned professionals. So there was this kind of alliance of a variety of different Nigerians, but put together by that community democracy. Of course, by the politicians, the G37, the G18, and all that. So the first thing is we really had a coalition for democracy that worked for democracy. Of course, the current president and a few actors in the political space were part of that at some point. And the second thing is we succeeded because it was clear who the enemy was. The enemy was military rule. The enemy was militarists, dictators. We didn't look at their profile, ethnic or their religious profile. We had people like Colonel Omar from the north, Obasani and several other people being part of it. Mbakwe, even Komode Butuki were politicians from the southeast, from the south, from the southwest. So the common denominator was we the people who wanted freedom. And the common enemy was the military. That was one of the defining things. We got into democracy after this struggle. Chief Abiola died. One unsung hero, Humphrey Nwosu, who had all opportunity to do what today Mahmoud and others have done, but stood strong, courageously refused, in spite of all the intellectual forces on the side of Babangida, Professor Omoren, several of them Chidamota, who were writing books in support of Babangida's revolution that came out to be fraud, as it were. So we had Nwosu put up a very courageous act that gave us a sense that Abiola, at least won, but not declared. So today, looking back, the first impression is that somebody say, "Where are these heroes gone? Where is the national coalition fighting for democracy in Nigeria? Why is the national coalition uniting Nigerian people to move to the next level of making sure that democracy cashes out in the form of economic and social well-being of the people, cashes out in the form of accountability, structured and institutionalized accountability. So it's with some sense of regret and sadness that one looks back and say, there used to be a country, there was a period in which we were united by just this commitment to save our fatherland, as the old new national anthem now says. So we had a time like that, but we've gone to a time of bickering, of political manipulation, where those who fought that battle are mostly arraigned against the people today. Either they are quisling, or they are collaborators, or they are, in fact, enabling, dictatorship by their sophistry and their, equivalences and equivocations. So for me, it's a day to say we tried, but we failed. Because today, everybody who really looks back will know that this democracy hasn't worked. Yes, we're not Burkina Faso, we're not Nigeria, and we're thankful to God that we've had 25 years of unbroken civil rule. But we cannot say that we've had 25 years of the three markers of democracy. First, credible elections, the people elect their leader. We don't have that. Two, we don't have complement of civil political rights, democratic rights, so no journalist is terrorized, people say their mind, suffer no losses. Well, we are better off than military rule, but we're not yet there. And in terms of accountability, that governance is responsive to the people in terms of feedback, in terms of participation, in terms of taking seriously people's expression of dislike or disfavor on policy that affect them. We're not there. So in these three markers, it's a failing grade. We're not happy, but we are relieved that we're not in military dictatorship.
And, I always appreciate how frank you keep things when you speak to us here on Newsday. That was a succinct roundup of some of the past heroes who seem to be playing a little bit more of a villain role in this current dispensation. But I want to talk about democracy all over the world. It is taking quite a kicking, as we can see all the way from Russia with what's going on between the Ukraine and Russia, all the way to the United States, where we see Trump and MAGA supporters and the issues of January 6th. And it seems like democracy is crumbling all over the world, especially in places where it was touted or maybe it was originally created. On the African continent, however, we're lucky we have not broken up just yet. But what do you see for the future of democracy? Do you see us tailoring it to be in a way that better suits our unique ethnic challenges? What do you see for the future of democracy within Nigeria, especially?
Okay, since Trump in 2016, there's been a cottage industry of literature, screaming end of democracy. The other one says how democracy dies, democracy in crisis, great scholars, Adam Prowisky, some of those guys have been thinking around it. And the notion is this: democracy has always had these two aspect. One is the ideal, and it's the ideal of self-determination, the ideal of self-rule that fits into what we now call representative democracy. So we used to have two forms of democracy: popular democracy, the democracy of anthems, and some would say some of the eastern, southeast Nigeria, Igbo democracy, republicanism. People gather at the market square or the town halls and express their views and do endless referenda about everything. The elders, at least the male citizens, participate, and adults. But then there's also the representative democracy that says, look, the democracy that we want is democracy where we appoint agents who now are like our trustees. We elect them, and then we hand over, as Schumpeter once said, democracy is the act of electing people and allow them to govern and vote them out when you want. So that is built around the integrity of the electoral process. What is happening all over the world today are twofold. The ideal is cracking, because the ideal of democracy is based on a certain common virtue, common value, which people call civic religion. We all affirm the nation. We all affirm a common understanding of statehood. I look to the Supreme Court Justice of the U.S. A leaked tape says where he's talking about in the U.S. incommensurable values, and say, look, there are two fights, two worldviews fighting. I don't see how we can arbitrate it. And so when there are two incommensurable and irreconcilable worldviews clashing, which is people call culture war, Huntington called the clash of civilization. When you have that civilizational conflict, democracy scatters, because essentially there's no demo, there's no city-state, there's no people. And that's what's in Europe. So we're seeing in Europe a fragmentation. The idea that this value system that we now call democracy and other associated issues around judicial review, independent judiciary, a parliament that does not, make laws that will allow the people themselves to govern through the MAGA movement or through the right wing. And so you see that the thinkers of democracy are worried that what we're getting, whether I call it populism or whether I call it the movement, ultra-right movement, it itself seems to destroy the foundation of democracy. So at the level of conceptual, of idealism, democracy is fractured. Democracy is looking for reconceptualization. At the level of institutions, which is the second dimension of democracy, we have seen that, we talk about parliament, free and fair election, electoralism. In Africa, we've built around democracy that's about election without thinking about the norm and the concepts. And so that is failing. We've seen disputes around the election. Look at what happened in France. And the Prime Minister Macron says that people have instrumentalized fear. So the outcome is being seen as negative. Yes, democracy worked. People voted. But the outcome is that people, instead of instrumentalizing ideas and instrumentalizing hope and faith, they're not said to be instrumentalizing fear, hatred, bigotry. So at the level of institutions, the parliaments have been captured. People talk now about state capture, whether in the US or anywhere, where you see that parliaments themselves are responding to very far extremists, whether of the left or the right. And so people are questioning whether democracy has not fractured both on ideals and institutions. For us Africans and Abuja School, really, what we think around is, look, we should be able to accept that the notion that people should govern themselves should be sacrosanct. And all societies or all value systems should affirm it. But again, we need to adapt the institutionalization form of democracy to respond to both our cultural context, to respond to the socio-economic context, and our own aspirations. So, for example, elections. How should we run elections? The notion that you're going to run an election to people vote for the president, maybe from the local areas, and there's no real campaign, they don't even know what the president stands for. Suppose, why don't we have a parliamentary system, a system where maybe through delegates, people elect from bottom-up, elected people close to them, they know, and those people have authorization to go up to the council or to cabinet and select a president. Maybe more orderly, less chaotic. You see that in the model, the British politics is more regulated, more peaceful, less chaotic than the US presidency election. So I think our job as elites or as thinking people is to look at the problem we are going through in democracy and affirm three central truths. One is we should allow people to choose their leaders. Two, we should allow for freedom, political, economic freedom. And three, we should look at systems that are amenable to accountability, so that any system, any structure that we choose or that we move into must reflect these three ideas, so that the people govern themselves. It might require more decentralization, so that people make votes at a level that matters to them. As a new theory is coming up with what they call open democracy. And the notion here is that there's so much democracy deficit in the way we run democracy. And they are saying, look, open up to too many referenda. So if you want to deal an issue, go to the people, do referendum, let them vote, and those votes now, so open-ended, let there be contingent, just vote, and then after for 4 years, the people are castrated, the people are just, filed them away, and then you govern according to the dictates interests of elite. So it's going through a turbulence, and maybe we'll fashion something that's more progressive, yes, realistic, and pragmatic.
Well, we sincerely hope so, and we'll just have to leave it on that note. Thank you always, Dr. Sam Amadi, Director of Abuja School of Social and Political Thought. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsday.